In this video, I want to talk about rules for in-ear monitoring for the rest of us. And by the rest of us, I mean other than the major artists who have a lot of money. So in the major artist world, what ends up happening is you have a console with a guy mixing just for the artists. Each artist has their own mix. They have custom-made in-ear molds with really high-end drivers, sometimes upwards of $2,000, $3,000 per person, plus the wireless transmitter receiver system. So you can get up to $5,000 for a really high-quality in-ear monitoring system. Well, that's not the system that you and I are going to be using. And it's not the system that your average church, high school, college theater might be using. So first of all, let's talk about the technologies that are out there and the things you need to think about. If you're going to do in-ear monitors of any kind, I mean, typically you're dealing with some sort of earbuds. Now, it does need to be mentioned that good in-ear monitors are not the kinds of earbuds you get from Apple and other places like that. Not to slam Apple, but those are not in-ear monitors for the music world. The ones I happen to use that I think are probably one of the best for the dollars are Future Sonics. Just happen to really like them. But one of the key elements of these, besides they have great bass response, they have a nice balanced frequency range, is they also have high output. And the high output comes in when you plug it into things that don't have enough drive to work on stage. So any in-ear monitor you get, you have to look at the sensitivity ratings, and then you have to look at whatever you're going to be driving it with, whether it's a wireless belt pack or an onstage headphone mixing box, or a feed from the console through some sort of amplifier. You got to be sure it can get loud enough with what you're using. Now, a good example of the problems, if you look at the sensitivity of these AKG K240s, and I don't remember all the numbers off the top of my head, but if you look these up and then you look these up, these are approximately 3 times as loud at the same volume as this is. This is a great sounding headphone. I use them in the studio, but in the studio I don't have stage volume to deal with. So in the studio, these are fine, using them with all sorts of monitoring solutions. But on stage, you need something that's at least this loud. And I think these are around the 114 dB range. I think that's all 1 milliwatt. So it's very critical you get a good set of in-ear monitors. The next thing is you need to figure out how to wear them. Now, each system, these have some really nice, maybe you can see that. These have really nice molded rubber cups that work really well inside your ear. You can wear them this way, you can wear them this way with it wrapped up over your ear, and you get a good fit both ways. Now, when I say good fit both ways, I want to talk about the first thing that just drives me crazy with in-ear monitoring. So the goal of in-ear monitors is to get the stage volume down so you can get a good mix, so you can hear all of the other players, so you can play better together, and to protect your hearing. So if your stage volume is 112 dB, you try to get down to 90, somewhere in a range where people would say you're not going to lose your hearing. You got to really get isolated. So you need good isolation. But the other thing you need is the ability to hear well. Now, I'm not sure how many people have noticed, but we have 2 ears. Most of us, at least. I think most people have 2 ears. There are probably exceptions. But what I see a lot of is this. 1 earbud in, 1 earbud hanging in front of you or off to the side or whatever. And beyond the fact that that's just dumb, but we won't talk about that. These people say, oh, I got to hear the stage. Yeah, you don't need to hear the stage. But the other thing is that since our heads were designed with a brain function looking for 2 ears, if you don't have both earbuds in, you have no bass response and you have no low mid-range response. So you end up in a situation where having the 1 ear in, you end up turning it up louder to try to compensate. Then if you've got other sound on stage, whether it's your own amplifier, wedges, whatever might be out there, you turn those up to try to compensate as if they were the other earpiece that you're not wearing. Now, doing that, in most cases, you actually end up being louder to both of your ears than you would have been if you didn't use these at all. And it's a horrible sound quality. So the first thing is you have to accept the fact you're going to wear both of them or you're going to blow your hearing out, and you're going to hear badly, and you're going to have horrible frequency response. And what I run into is people who are doing that usually have a horrible front end feeding their in-ears, which is why they're doing that. So one of the first mistakes that's made, and we're going to go look at a couple of options here on some console software in either this video or another video, I'm not sure yet. First mistake is having the house engineer feeding the system. Now, it happens a lot in these medium-priced venues where they don't have a monitor console and a monitor engineer. And keep in mind, if you do ever try to do a monitor console and a monitor engineer, that guy's really got to be better than the house guy, because the house guy makes sound for the audience and usually doesn't kill people. The monitor engineer, on the other hand, if they make a mistake, can blow your ears out when you're wearing earbuds that are capable of getting really loud. So that person has to have a skill set where mistakes are not allowed. There is no making mistakes if you're the monitor engineer on stage, or people's heads will explode like that movie, Kingsman, that movie where all their heads blew up. That can happen. So you got that to deal with. You've also got the issue of, if you're feeding off the house console, what kind of EQ is going to the monitor mix? And that can be selected in most desks, and we'll talk about that. So you've got the first issue, you got to wear both earbuds. So the second issue that comes up is, how do I hear a good on-stage ambience when I'm doing this? Well, the first one is, do you really want it? Because it's going to be out of phase information and it's going to be all kinds of messy. But let's just assume you do want that. So now you go, do I want a stereo ambience or do I want a mono ambience? And part of that depends on how many channels to my in-ears I've got left to play with. And do I also want reverb? So let's talk about this. Let's just say you put a stereo mic on stage and you feed it to 2 channels of your in-ears, panned left, right. You look at where that's located on stage relative to the PA system and other loud things, and then you time adjust that microphone to synchronize better with that signal so that the sound it's producing isn't a horrible hollow stage sound. It's more of a decent blend of the stage sound. And then you bring that up in your in-ears to the point where you go, yeah, I feel like I've got my ambience. I don't know why people need this, but anyway, I got my ambience. And then you can add reverb on top. Personally, I would run with reverb only, and I wouldn't care about the ambience, because the purpose of the in-ears is twofold. One, it's quiet everything down. 2, it's getting a better mix. And 3, it's turning down all the stuff I don't want to hear. Like the singers who need auto-tune, I want to turn them down because I don't really want them in my mix. The guitar player who's still trying to figure out what the chords are, turn him off, because you got the other guitar player who knows what he's doing. So you've got all of these things back and forth you got to look at is, what do I really want to listen to? Because now I got the option of, I don't have to hear all this stuff. So, and I happen to be a drummer, so let's just say I want bass, keyboards, probably guitar. If we're unfortunate enough to actually have vocals, which often we are, a vocal, that would be acceptable. And then if you got lead instruments, whatever they might be, saxophone, tuba, any of those things, you want those in your in-ears. And then you got to decide, do you want those all as individual channels, or do you want somebody to feed you a mix? So the ins and outs of that are pretty simple. If I feed you a mix from the house console, or someone does from a monitor console, you don't have to think about anything while you're up there playing and performing. Now, as a drummer, I can reach over and touch a box pretty easily and make my own adjustments. As a saxophone player or a singer or a guitar player, it's a lot harder because I gotta stop what I'm doing and reach over and play with things. So that's another set of decisions to make as to whether you have a mix fed to you that you just get on either a wireless box or some other receptor, or whether you actually have what we would call an on-stage mix box. So, buyers beware. If you get all these things and you do it badly, you're not going to like it. And I can't tell you how many places we go to where they've primarily usually got these, some kind of in-ears, with onstage mix boxes, and they've stopped using them and gone back to wedges because they couldn't get a mix they were happy with. But an awful lot of that was due to the other problem, which is they never learned how to use that box.